Welcome to Bruce Hurwitz Presents Meet the Experts. I'm your host, Bruce Hurwitz of Hurwitz Strategic Staffing. You can find us on the web at hsstaffing.com. I hope you'll consider us for all your staffing, career counseling, and speech writing needs. I am delighted to be joined today by Mandy Santiago. We will be discussing applying a forensic mindset. Meet the Experts is sponsored by P&K CPAs. P&K is a full-service accounting firm. They provide accounting and consulting services to businesses ranging from startups to small and mid-cap companies to nonprofits as well as high-net-worth individuals. Contact them today for a free consultation at pk-cpas.com or call them at 973-882-8810. They will be happy to be of service. Mandy, thank you for joining me and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Bruce. It's a pleasure to be here.
The pleasure is mine. Please take a few minutes and introduce yourself to our viewers.
Sure. So I'm Mandy Santiago. I'm currently serving as the Executive Director of Tyler Arboretum, but by day, my interests involve forensic medicine, and I just graduated with a master's degree in forensic medicine from the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine.
Very impressive. Now, you provided us with a slide, which I want to go to and share with our viewers. What are we looking at?
So I think when folks hear the word forensics, they automatically jump to crime scenes or resolving an investigation involving death. And I like to bring to the table that forensics can be used in a variety of settings and applied in a variety of industries, actually. And so we're using some of these forensic applications at our public garden and arboretum, but I think viewers can also apply it in their own workplaces. And so if you'd like, we can kind of walk through some of the opportunities there are to identify applying forensic principles.
Please, because one of the things that I'm curious about is you're listing these as objectives. Observe or examine the evidence collected to solve a problem, crime, puzzle, or mystery. It doesn't seem to be an objective. It seems to be part of the process of gathering your facts, and the same for all of them. So explain what you mean by objectives and how this would work. I'm going to get rid of this slide because it's, I'd rather speak with you face to face, so to speak.
Okay, very well.
Explain how it would work, how forensics can be utilized in business.
Absolutely. So let's start at the very beginning, making sure that we're clear on the definition. So for forensics, it's the process of finding evidence. And for the investigative part, it's the process of examining the evidence you've collected. So we could take almost any industry. For example, let's start with banking. If you're trying to identify fraudulent patterns for a customer that might be abusing an account, or trying to identify potential hackers that are threatening your cybersecurity system, you would want to walk through your data to identify potential trends in terms of negative behavior or in terms of patterns that you're seeing in your data. And from that, you can extrapolate what are some of the problem areas, if you will, and how you can dedicate resources to address it. So if you see that there are particular email accounts where your clients or customers are experiencing phishing spams, you can kind of zone in on tracking what type of computer or device is this coming from, and how can we put in some measures that will help prevent future emails from this account from coming into our system. So if I were to take this at the Arboretum, we are teaching students and adults, how do they apply that same mindset to connecting with nature? Are they able to observe any patterns or trends around them in terms of wildlife that they're observing, in terms of botanical plants that they enjoy, particular trees that they're fond of, and what are some of the potential threats that are harming some of those critical systems. So is the spotted lanternfly attacking your favorite tree in the backyard? Is there a particular pest or insect that's attacking your fruits and vegetables in your home garden? Are there particular birds that seem to be thriving on your favorite bird seed that you're putting out in the yard, but others not so much? So trying to identify what are some of those patterns based on the clues that you have right in front of you and making determinations from there.
I always thought that, or I saw forensics as reverse engineering to draw a conclusion about what is happening in the present.
That is one opportunity for utilizing it. There's also the opportunity to apply it to organisms that are living. So in some examples, perhaps a nursing home or a motor vehicle accident, you might want to use the same methodology for tracking, was this an intentional incident that happened or was this accidental? So there are various applications, which is why I think forensics is so exciting and so diverse as a potential industry for new individuals to enter.
Now you provided another slide where you, just put it up, where you listed various industries where forensics can be utilized.
Yeah.
Why don't you, well, first off, tell us about the Tyler Arboretum.
Sure. So we are a 650-acre preserve based in Media, Pennsylvania, Delaware County. And we have everything from hiking trails to botanical gardens to treehouse exhibits and historical buildings. So for our property, it's really an opportunity for people to just wander and enjoy nature and disconnect from some of their devices and plentiful Zoom calls and just reboot the mind and the body. One of my favorite places to be.
I wanted to make sure we got that in.
Thank you.
Now, I've heard of forensic accounting. I haven't heard of forensic cybersecurity, but you explained that. But give us some practical examples of how a company can use a forensic mindset, which, and I'll go back to the previous slide, hopefully I'll do this correctly, where you're using these, well, trying to find the answers to these questions in order to answer your main question of what happened, how can I prevent it from happening again, if it's a negative, or how can I make sure we continue to do it if it's a positive. So give us a case study. Choose whichever one you're most comfortable with.
Sure. Okay, let's start with the insurance category. Let's say I'm a small business owner and I've had a series of claims regarding slip and falls and ankle injuries for either an employee or a customer.
Okay.
The insurance provider, I probably want to have a team of dedicated forensic investigators who are going to analyze that data to figure out, is there potentially some opportunity for negligence on the behalf of this business owner? Is there a structural problem on the property that perhaps could be corrected through an engineering analysis? Or has this business been targeted by a select group of individuals to submit false claims and benefit financially? So I think the same mindset would apply just looking at data claims for insurance payouts. On the flip side, this might be a great opportunity for the business owner as well to identify these very same questions and how they can address that internally to prevent future claims. So it works for all sides and certainly results in improved public health and safety for their customers.
How does this differ from simply saying we're going to investigate what happened?
Well, I think investigating a specific case brings you to resolution in that one individual scenario. But as an organization, if you're interested about safety and prevention, risk management even, you're looking at a long-term solution to even prevent these types of incidences from happening ever again. So you want to not just address the problem at hand, you want to use that data to help you make strategic decisions that are going to improve your business's performance for the long haul.
How do you know that you have your forensics correct?
Excellent question. So part of that scientific process is also bouncing off your same ideas, your findings, your research with other investigators to see if they too come to the same conclusion. That's the one part that the TV shows get, unfortunately, incorrect all the time. Can't solve everything in 30 minutes and with one computer and one technician. You really do need a collaborative team helping you look at all different angles and perspectives to answer those questions.
So for an insurance claim, let's say a traffic accident,
Okay.
you would need to do a can't even say it, a forensic investigation of the mechanics of the automobiles.
Correct. You'd want to know if there were any recalls for that vehicle, for any defaults in their parts or performance. You'd want to know, has this been a particular problem area where other accidents have occurred over a short period of time? You'd want to know what
you mean by area, the geographic area. If
Correct.
At the corner of Main and First, there have been a lot of accidents.
Correct. It might be as simple as there's not a stop sign or traffic light at that location. So vehicles making a turn in either direction might be prompting some of these accidents, or that you're proceeding uphill and can't see what's above the hill. And so perhaps some warning signs or signals that there is an incline ahead might help drivers pay a little more attention and prevent those kinds of accidents from happening. So many different angles to take a look at, but obviously you're going to take a look at the driver's performance. What was the person doing at the time? Were they operating the vehicle, or were they operating another gadget inside the vehicle, or talking on their cell phone, or simply distracted by something that they might have seen or heard? So all of those factors will play a role into helping you with your investigation.
I was laughing when you said about going uphill and not being able to see what's above, because there was a police car coming in the opposite lane towards me, and I was zigzagging like this. This was many years ago, going downhill. And immediately he turned on the lights, and I started to laugh because I knew he thought I was drunk. First off, I don't drink, and second, I wasn't drunk. What I was playing a video game with the potholes.
There we go.
You know, Pac-Man. Going to, or no, wasn't Pac-Man, it was something frog, where you try to cross the street and you've got cars coming at. Well, I was going, well, he turned around, came back, started to speed, and then when he realized what I had been doing, and by the time he turned around, I was at the end of the hill, he slowed down. He hit a couple potholes. He slowed down. He drove up right beside me. He didn't bother to get out of the car. His partner rolled down the window, and I looked at him and said, "Any questions, officer?" And he said, "Nope."
Well, that's probably the fastest investigation ever completed, but glad you made it through safely and without a ticket.
No, I wasn't worried about getting a ticket. I was, to be perfectly honest, concerned that I was going to have to stay there as a witness to why he had blown a tire or lost the wheel, because they said, in all seriousness, it was very nice. He said that the street will be reported. And the next time, a couple of days later, I was there, all the potholes were filled. Because it was really dangerous. But anyways, you have different professionals investigating. You have maybe the NTSB. You have the car companies. You have the police. You have the insurance companies. This reminds me of architecture. And when you are building a house, any building, doesn't matter, you have to have a project manager overseeing everything to make sure that people don't get in each other's ways and that when whatever needs to be done first gets done first so that the next person could come in and do their job. You have a timetable. How do you coordinate forensics when you need to have so many different people involved to have a thorough investigation?
That's an outstanding question, and I'm glad you asked. So for every investigation, there will be a very similar chain of command as you would with any other investigation. So if there were a fire on the scene, you'd have a lead fire investigator. If there was a traffic accident, you'd have a commanding officer in charge. So during a forensic investigation, you usually have a lead detective or a lead investigator who oversees all of the parties and coordinates the flow of information to make sure that everyone involved is receiving the latest, greatest information and updates based on lab results, research findings, photographic evidence, audio evidence, so that they're all working in unison. And I think that's one of the better outcomes of forensics, is that it encourages and inspires collaboration, which doesn't always happen in other industries or in other scenarios. So for me, that's one of the more enjoyable aspects of forensics.
One of the exercises, let's call it, that I remember when I was taking Introduction to Psychology was someone came in the middle of the class, screamed at the professor, and then ran out.
Okay.
And then the professor said to us, take a piece of paper and describe the person. It was a setup, all right?
Right.
We couldn't agree on anything. It was a human being who was rude. That was it. Male, female, race, age, even what the person was wearing. We got it all wrong. And we were all there.
Witnessing the same thing.
Witnessing the same thing. And subsequently, I learned that in trials, eyewitness accounts are not reliable.
There is
in many cases, especially with the passage of time.
Correct. Our memories fade, the details become less lucid, and yes, we might even confuse a few details or start to replace certain details with others that may not have even occurred. So yes, eyewitness testimony is not the most reliable source of information. It can be important, but I think that's why there's such emphasis on the data collection. Usually the DNA or physical evidence that's left behind during an accident or an incident, that's more convincing and more accurate than, unfortunately, witness testimony.
So the I forget what it's called, but the computer chips in our cars that track everything we do, that is unbiased, neutral evidence. You were at the corner of First and Main. You had been driving at 45 miles an hour in a school zone. There is nothing to discuss. The facts are there. All right, those are facts. Now, there are other facts. There's a fact that there was two police cars coming at you, and they were chasing another car, not you. So you sped up to get out of the way so that the police officers could do their job. Or you were speeding, and you were speeding going into a hospital zone because beside you was your wife, who was extremely rude and inconsiderate and decided to go into labor. And you wanted her to deliver in the hospital and not the front seat of your car.
Seems reasonable.
So there can be mitigating circumstances.
Correct. And that's why it's so important throughout the process that you have that opposing view. You have an opportunity for the witnesses to present testimony, and for those who might be prosecuting the case or investigating the case to challenge some of those details. So that's why the process is so important.
How do you know when a situation demands forensics and not simply saying, Joe, what happened? Mary, what happened? Doing what in the military they refer to as an after action report?
I would argue, Bruce, that there really isn't a scenario where you wouldn't want to have a forensic investigation completed. I think it behooves us to learn from our either mistakes or previous experiences so that we can grow and improve upon them. Again, if it's something that we're trying to prevent and we're noticing trends and patterns that the same problem keeps reoccurring, then that's our opportunity to take that collective data and utilize it to develop an effective strategy. If it's something that's working particularly well, I would think it behooves a business or an organization to replicate that in other systems throughout the organization. So for me, it's a lifelong process. It's a daily process. I don't think it's reserved just for a special incident. It's really a mindset that you incorporate throughout your tenure.
I honestly can't think of a reason why someone would object to a forensic investigation, although they may be scared off by the name because they may think, well, forensic, I'm being accused of committing a crime. But let's put that aside. All right, that's easy to deal with. I've been an employee at enough companies to know that anytime you try something, somebody's going to object to it. So how would you get buy-in for forensics? Because people are going to think of whatever the police show is that they watch, and that's their perspective on forensics.
I think you use that individual as an opportunity to serve as a check and balance for the process. So you want someone who's going to question the evidence. You want to encourage someone to play devil's advocate. And perhaps that's the role you invite that person to play, who may not either believe in or want to participate in. Let them take that role and let the data then speak for itself once you've completed a very thorough and cross-departmental investigation, and see if it changes their mind. It may not, but at least you're providing that counterbalance to your own mindset. The one thing you don't want to do as an investigator is make assumptions. You need to follow the evidence from beginning to end, no matter where it takes you. So you may start off with a particular theory about what happened, but if you're doing your job correctly, you're following where that evidence leads you, and you may come to a completely different conclusion and have to accept those results. You may not agree with them, may not like them, but you have to follow the process.
That was going to be my next question. If you can disagree with the evidence, or you can disagree with the evidence, but can you also disagree with the process? Don't you have to accept the process? Isn't that more important? Sort of like Daniel Patrick Moynihan's famous line, you're entitled to your own opinion, but not your own facts.
There is that. However, we want to be mindful about how evidence is handled, which is another important component of forensic investigations. If perhaps you're not identifying or classifying evidence appropriately, you've lost evidence, or you've misplaced it, or perhaps it's never been analyzed. Those are all going to play a part in your investigation and perhaps raise some questions and doubts about the validity of your data. So it is very important as an investigator to really dot your I's and cross your T's in terms of the checklist for how you handle, tag, and store evidence so that there is no question, perhaps when you need to testify, or that it does not raise doubts when you're discussing your theories and applications with other investigators. So there are opportunities, of course, for things to go awry, but I think for the most part, most investigators are trained. They're probably very well experienced and trained in their area of expertise. And they do their jobs very well. So there's always going to be one or two bad apples in the group, but I think as a whole, you can depend on the data getting you to the solution.
Yeah, that's the same for anything. Just because there's one bad player doesn't mean that all of them are. And I think we know that today.
Yeah.
Except for very few people who paint everybody with the same brush, but they'll always be around and there's nothing you can do about it. Mandy, what haven't I asked you that you would have liked me to have asked you?
Oh, I would love for folks to know who are watching and listening that there is a distinction between forensic science and forensic medicine. So forensic science deals with the applications and skill sets of studying a crime scene. So your evidence collection, your blood stain analysis, your fingerprint analysis, and so forth. Forensic medicine tends to deal with the prevention and identification of things such as physical abuse, assault, neglect, and really trying to keep the patient alive so that we're not conducting an autopsy at some point in the evaluation. So there is opportunity to work with real live patients, and I want people to know that there's always that distinction. It's not just crime scenes involving death or accident. It's really also investigating opportunities for prevention, just as we outlined for cybersecurity or insurance purposes. There's a multitude of opportunities to apply this mindset.
Well, Mandy, I thank you profusely. Before I let you go, and I'm going to share it, please tell our viewers how they can get in touch.
Absolutely. You can reach me via LinkedIn with my profile, or you can email me, msantiago@tylerarboretum.org.
Well, Mandy, thank you so much for coming on. You've provided a very interesting perspective for our viewers, and I'm sure they appreciate it, as do I.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Bruce. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're most welcome. I'm Bruce Hurwitz. Thank you for watching. And as always, please stay focused on success.